is 20 odd minutes away, so let's go back to page 56 in the
56, Mr. Chairman.
The council paper.
Specific regional projects is a sum of 25,000 put aside here for support for the tsunami display at the National Aquarium. And I don't know whether you know more about this than I might.
No.
Right. Okay. Yeah, this fund's got a long history. It's been a fund set up to assist with the earthquake display at the museum, and we have assisted, and money has been paid over. I just can't remember the exact amount, but it's not huge. It's about 75,000, and we're left with 25,000. And there has been discussions going forward about it's not needed for the earthquake display. And now we have had an involvement with the tsunami display at the National Aquarium, and there's obviously a desire to put it into that, or put a further sum into that display in the interests of key messaging to the public for our emergency management. So that's what I know about it. It's money that sits there for that purpose, and we're asking whether we could carry it forward because...
Very good. Councillor Balfour.
This, I must say, this is the smallest amount we're dealing with, but it's the one that gave me the most trouble. It seemed like we were just sort of grabbing at something to hang $25,000 on because we discovered it in the shoebox, and let's make sure we keep it on hand to spend it on something. I don't hear much of a case. I would sure want to see more of a case. People have been in here asking for $10,000 for this, $15,000 for that, have made, I think, more effective cases for what they do than anything I'm reading here in this report for this $25,000.
Similar sentiment, actually.
Yeah,
Councillor Bevan.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment along the same lines. I was a little bit uncomfortable with the previous one, the $700,000, because I don't think money should be carried forward to the next year unless it's earmarked for something specific. And I wasn't 100% convinced about the previous one, and I'm not 100% convinced about this one either. Just to move the money forward because we might use it for a purpose is not good enough for me. It needs to be specifically earmarked for a purpose that we haven't yet spent the money for.
Just so we're clear, the previous one was actually a provision. There was no funds went forward. It was a provision to borrow. But this, I'd like to know a little more about this myself.
This, Mr. Chairman, is 25,000 that sits in the special reserve. It goes back 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a special fund that was set up from through the Endowment Act. It needed to be spent on specific regional projects as identified by this council. And the one identified at the time was the earthquake display with the museum. So some of the councillors that have been here for a long time, you'd remember this. I've just said to Mr. Adey, is it possible to actually, as long as it's spent on a specific regional project, is it possible to for this council to consider the 25,000 and other specific regional projects?
So it wasn't rated, is that what you're saying? It was a bequeathment, is it?
No, it was an amount of money that had to be put aside through the Napier Leasehold Endowment Act. It's about.
So are you saying it's being, through you, Chair, it's been carried forward for 4 years now?
Can I explain? I haven't been involved in this, and so I'm not too aware of the details, but possibly just help. There was a sum of money, I think it was $100,000 set aside to provide for education on earthquakes and tsunami natural hazards within the old museum prior to the new one being developed. That it was agreed at the time that display could be transferred to the new museum, which did happen, and they asked for further information. Now, Lisa Pierce, who runs this, was not happy that in the new display they decided to drop off the science element of the of the display, and therefore withheld money from them and said we are not paying the balance. What she would like to see is that, and she's working with the National Aquarium, a sort of much more science-orientated display is established within Napier, and that's the National Aquarium, to cover off a good education tool for the public and visitors to Hawke's Bay to understand the natural hazards, and particularly the coastal ones here. So that is perhaps a little bit of context around it.
Mr. Chairman.
So just before I go, just to clarify that, has the scoping work been done that this can actually deliver that piece of work, and is it, how soon would it happen? I mean, are we sitting there, well, it's in abeyance and let's try and make it work, or is there actually a physical pathway to take?
Well, I was talking to Ms Pearce yesterday, and last week there was a natural hazards research workshop here in this room with a number of staff from both the Regional Council and other councils and emergency management agencies. Following that, Lisa took a couple of I think they were from NIWA, the scientists who have provided information or are working on the tsunami risk, to the aquarium to look at the potential, the site of a potential educational display. And so they've started already the discussion about what that would incorporate, how it would look, etc., etc. So it's not just a possibility maybe. It's actually something that's that she's already started quite serious discussions on with the experts that will provide a lot of the actual educational input into any display.
Well, let's work down the paper. Councillor Scott and Councillor Dick.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Actually, this matter dates back an awful lot longer than that. It was proposed by Jeremy Dwyer, and $100,000 was set aside for that civil defence education budget, and the focus was on earthquakes, and some of it has already been spent specifically on that when the Regional Council has mounted a display in the old museum. And certainly the remainder was agreed that it would be carried forward until a new display, permanent display, was put up. I personally think it's very disappointing that there is no science aspect to that display. It is purely social history. And I do ask, have we been in any discussions with the MTG over the possibility of, much as we've got with the tsunami display, which is a computer terminal, well, a lot of the focus is on the computer terminal, around some of the elements of education around an understanding of the earthquakes in this area. I do recall some years ago a travelling show that demonstrated how liquefaction worked, which was a simple technological part of the display. Have we had discussions around our expectations of that funding with the MTG?
None of us think he can answer that, but I'll perhaps during the lunch break see if I can catch up with Lisa and either see if she's available late this afternoon or get an answer to that question from her for you.
Can we then park it perhaps until later on in the day? Councillor Dick.
I might be speculating to an extent, but I actually think this goes right back to the liberalisation of the Leasehold Endowment Act, which I think Councillor Barker, if he was here, would recall, because I think it was part of the process. But if I'm right, there were funds set aside that had to be spent within a certain geographic area and within certain parameters. And I have a feeling, and I'm sure it can be confirmed, that if you took this and you said, well, we don't want to spend it on that, you couldn't throw it back into the general pot.
That's
it has to be
correct.
a regional project. Specific.
Oh,
But I can look up the act and see if I can find it.
yeah.
I think there's enough confusion to leave this on the table just for now. And let's move on to the next one.
I'll do the next next one, Mr. Chairman. Project 893, the regional infrastructure. This is the other part, if you like, of the fund that Paul talked about earlier around the open space projects. But this is the funding that's already been provisionally allocated to a number of projects via the Regions 4 territorial authority areas. In the past 12 months, or in the current financial year, we've completed payment for the hockey turf at the regional sports park. That was the other major outstanding item in this. But there are still two projects which Council has approved funding for, which have yet to realise their requests, their actual invoicing of us for those funds, and that's the visitor centre at Tamata Park and the upgrade of the Wairoa Community Centre. So in both cases, paragraph 8.2 and 8.3 give you some explanation which we've received from those agencies about where they're at in terms of their progress, and we are just asking that you approve the carry forward of the contributions in respect of those two projects into the next financial year, so that they're still, if you like, guaranteed the funding that's been agreed to.
Can I kick that one off? Question to Mr. Drury. Tamata Park Visitor Centre in particular, I mean, how far forward? What are the implications of that thing just keeps getting carried forward? They've still got to find another 1.1 million, is my understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, does it go on forever? What's this costing us, this provision?
Oh,
if they don't draw it down?
No, it's not costing us anything. This is going to be borrowed money. So until we pay it out, Mr. Chairman, we won't actually borrow it to fund it. So the answer to that is if they never need it, we'll never borrow it. But given that the total fund is 7.5 million, this council may decide to redirect the 500,000 to another project, or they may not.
Well, I guess then the obvious question is when is a reasonable time for them to kick this thing off? I suppose that's a question for us as council.
Yeah, I think this was in the LTP, wasn't it?
Yeah, so this was in the long-term plan. I spoke to, I obviously spoke to Bruno about it a week or two ago, and look, they're confident, and their focus is on raising the remaining funds in the coming financial year. They now have their resource consents, which they didn't have 12 months ago. And they would expect that they would get underway with tenders and construction early in the following financial year, which will actually be 2015-16. So I think it's probably appropriate that we check back with them closer to the time of the draft LTP going out, just to see where they're actually at with that.
Other questions, Councillor Grant?
Well, I'd move that.
You happy to move?
Yeah, I'm happy to move.
You happy to second, Councillor Belford? Further discussion? Put that motion, then all those in favour please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Systems integration projects.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is capital expenditure. There's a number of capital items that have moved forward, but some of them not as far as we'd like. There's been a lot of work done on financial systems enhancements and flowing into regulatory billing and then flowing into consent compliance. There is a sum of 30,000 which is part of this project. This is a continuing project into next year, and the team have asked for that sum to be carried forward. They're not going to be able to finalise what they're doing this year, and the fund will be required next year. So it's part of a continuing capital project.
Okay. Questions? Moved, seconded.
Okay.
Further discussion? Put the motion, then all those in favour please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Buildings.
The next one, Mr. Chairman, refers to the proposed building work at the works group at Guppy Road. You'll recall in December 13, which is fairly current, 410,000 plus just was approved by this council. The status of the project is that there's consultant architects have designed the remedial work, and it'll go out to tender, which it has gone out to tender, and that tender will close on the 27th of May 2014. We need to evaluate let the tender. So apart from the architect fees of 14,000, the rest were required to be carried forward into the 14-15 year when the construction will actually happen.
Pretty straightforward.
So
Question.
this and the next one, which is the Wairoa office, I think we all know quite specifically about, and I'm happy to recommend to move both 10.3 and 11.3.
Well, mover was Councillor Hewitt. Were you happy to second Councillor Hewitt? Okay, so you're happy to move both?
Yeah.
Second both. Further discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried.
The next one, Mr. Chairman, is plant and equipment. It's a technical science bit of capital. It's $10,000, and I don't know an awful lot about it, but it would appear as though weather conditions have precluded the removal of the existing buoy before the new buoy can be installed. So, I mean, it's that sort of thing. Yeah.
Moved and underwritten by Councillor Graham. Seconded Councillor Scott. Any further discussion? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I would like to point out that on page 59 there is a table there at the top of the table, at the top of the page, and I alluded to it just briefly, but there you will find that the draft annual plan as it currently sits is about break even. It's a 7,000 deficit. With these carried forward items, the final plan will now have a deficit of, in this statement, 407,000 at the moment. There will be other
You
decisions made
haven't
by
got
this
the
council.
25 yet.
Sorry?
You haven't got the 25 yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
25
Yeah, no,
is
you
still to happen.
Oh,
yet.
no.
We haven't done-
The
and-
25 is a special fund, so it's not even on there.
And
so-
dependent on other decisions, of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
and dependent on others.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention it.
So lunch is ready. Could I just make a comment that my reckoning, this is one of the lighter carry forwards we've had in my time, and I'd like to congratulate the staff actually for, it's very hard in a scientific organisation delivering things on time. So you have challenges, and you've obviously met most of them in this current financial year, and I applaud that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also just noted that we got the message loud and clear from last year too. So and that certainly helped focus our attention there too.
Okay, we'll adjourn for lunch and back here at 1:10 with Mr. Mohi welcoming my aunt.